News overseas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's push to overhaul the nation's judiciary has not sat well with the White House and allies in Washington, D.C. In addition, his government policies against the Palestinians are drawing pushback from Washington. Yet, though the Prime Minister Netanyahu has never received an invite to visit the U.S., Israeli President Isaac Herzog has filled in the gap and even got the chance to speak to a joint session of Congress where he was warmly received and lauded, as Linda Gradstein reports from Jerusalem for VOA.
From the multiple standing ovations during Israeli President Isaac Herzog's speech to the U.S. Congress, it looked like the U.S.-Israel relationship is stronger than ever. But Herzog could not ignore the tensions that overshadowed the trip.
I'm not oblivious to criticism among friends, including some expressed by respected members of this House. I respect criticism, especially from friends, although one does not always have to accept it.
In his White House meeting with Herzog, President Biden stressed his deep connection to the Jewish state, calling the bond unbreakable. But the very fact that it was Israel's president, a symbolic figure and not the actual leader of the government, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was invited to the White House and to speak before Congress, reveals the deep tensions between the U.S. and the current Israeli government. Only the day before Herzog's visit and 7 months after Netanyahu came back into power did President Biden invite Netanyahu to meet at an unspecified time and place.
In Israel, a prime minister is not a prime minister until he visits the White House. Traditionally, this used to happen within weeks of one's swearing in to the position.
President Biden has warned Netanyahu about undermining Israeli democracy by pursuing a radical reform of Israel's judicial system without broad public consensus and in the face of widespread protests. Biden has also voiced concerns about extremists in Netanyahu's governing coalition.
The presenting problem in the relationship here is the reform, but I think there are much deeper problems. The much deeper problems relate to this government's position toward the Palestinians, toward the two-state solution that the United States still upholds, and the presence of ministers like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who are utterly unacceptable to this administration. I don't think acceptable to any administration.
Throughout his visit, President Herzog tried to reassure American leaders that Israeli democracy remains strong, even if it is currently in turmoil. Whether this will be enough to bridge the significant gaps between the Biden and Netanyahu government policies remains a question. Linda Gradstein for VOA News, Jerusalem.